Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Mark Gabberti, and this is the podcast for entrepreneurs who are looking for the breakthrough for their businesses. Many people want to write books, and yet few people do. Different things come up, and a lack of time is often the biggest excuse we muster. However, we can turn our ideas into published books, and this episode is going to show you how you can do just that. Today's guest is the owner and co-founder of Archangel Ink. His goal is to help authors and entrepreneurs everywhere easily reach their audiences, share their messages, and build their brands. Archangel Ink assists authors in various stages of the process, such as cover design, editing, audiobook production, formatting, ghostwriting, and more. Today's guest for episode 107 of the Breakthrough Success Podcast is none other than Rob Archangel. Rob, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invitation and look forward to sharing some hopefully helpful and useful information for your audience.
Rob, I really look forward to diving into this episode, and I do appreciate you taking the time to share your insights with us today. But before we go deep into the insights, into the critical parts of the show where we talk about getting that book out there, why did you start Archangel Ink?
That's a good question. So Archangel Ink really formed because my company co-founder, Matt Stone, was looking for some help on his website. At the time, he was working mainly in the health and fitness arena as a writer. He had a fairly active website and a number of books out there, and he wanted to expand his reach. And he brought me on and said, hey, help me do that, and I'll give you a cut of whatever we can make. And so I invited him to expand into the Amazon e-reader and print-on-demand paperback and audiobook market. And we just established a good process for doing all of that. We did that for 10 or 12 or so of his books, and realized that actually that process has value for others, that there are potentially other authors out there, other people who maybe have a website, maybe have a little bit of a following, maybe have something they want to say, but aren't interested in the technical details of producing a book and taking advantage of all of the publishing options that exist out there today, the self-publishing options. And so we decided, okay, let's open the doors. Let's start doing this for other people. And it's proven to be a pretty valuable set of services. We've expanded the team. We've done a number of different things to help offer a fuller array of services for people in various aspects of that publishing, business, entrepreneurial arena. And we're really happy with everything that we've done, and we hope to continue doing it for a long time.
And I really enjoy hearing that backstory of how Archangel Ink came to be. I mean, you originally just provide the service to Matt, and then this expands to helping other authors. And one of the things I think about with authors, and I feel like this is their biggest struggle, is finishing their book, like writing that first draft. Like editing, yes, that's part of it. Marketing is part of it, but I feel like writing that first draft is the hardest part. So what are some ways that we can finish that first draft?
Yeah, that's a great question. There are a number of different things that potentially you can do. So I think one of the important questions to ask when you're working on your book is, why are you writing a book? What is your goal? What do you hope to accomplish from it? Once you have a sense of why, it's a little bit easier to find motivation and clarity about how to actually follow through with it. So if you're sort of forcing yourself to write a book, you think you should write a book, but you don't feel exactly inspired or motivated, you might find it to be a bit of a struggle. There are some authors out there who they're struck by the muse, and they have so much they need to say, and they almost can't help but to write, and publishing is just a natural consequence of that. There are other people, some of whom we end up helping and working with, who realize that a book may be really helpful for their career goals, for their business, for building their brand. And they think, okay, so how can I do this? And maybe they want to enlist help. In our case, we offer ghostwriting. We also offer coaching and assistance for people to help clarify, essentially serving as an accountability partner. But if you are interested in writing it yourself, and a lot of authors are, then there are a number of habits that others have found successful that I can mention. One of them is get in the habit of writing every day. I think it's really important to create that habit. Don't worry so much about the quality of the writing. In fact, if it's easier and if it helps you get it out there, write deliberately bad material, stuff that you know is not going to be very good, because it's a lot easier to edit than it is to create. And if you give yourself permission to create without expectation of excellence, you're that much closer to actually having an excellent finished product. Again, you can go back and edit and refine and, okay, is that really what I wanted to say? And kind of make sense of your thought process that way. But definitely get in that habit and give yourself permission to do it consistently. Another thing I think that's important is being fairly wide-read yourself, experiencing what other people have to say and pardon me, determining what your thoughts are in relation to that, what's inspiring you, what's moving you. And one piece of advice I've seen, which may be helpful for some, is write about what you love or about what you hate. If you try and write about something that you're indifferent toward or kind of blasé about, it's going to be a lot harder pardon me, to finish through on that writing process. So those are a couple of ideas on how to apologize, audience. It is the middle of winter, fighting a little bit of a cold, but I'm still happy to be here.
We're in
so
the
just bear with
right
me
now in temperature.
Finding something that you're energized about and that you're passionate about can make it easier to actually get the words on paper if some of those other habits and ideas are not effective for you.
And I really like the idea that, like, don't write a book if you're not enjoying the process. I mean, I had a book that I wrote and I did not like that process. I literally gave up on that book before I finished it. And that allowed me to have a better experience when I wrote the other ones, because that was more from passion. And it's very important to do work that you feel passionate about. And that's why using a service like Archangel Ink to delegate some of the tasks is so useful. I mean, there's so many different areas that you guys cover, but not everyone wants to outsource every part. Like, some people may really love to do cover design. Others may really love to do editing. But how can we determine which processes within the book publishing, writing, marketing should we delegate?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. So I think part of it is just being really honest with yourself and figuring out where your strengths are, figuring out where your passion, where your motivation is, figuring out what your time level and time commitment is. So one of the questions that I think is helpful to ask and ruminate on is, what is the best use of my time? Some of the most successful people out there emphasize that you should figure out what you're really good at and double down, triple down on it. Do more and more of that, and then outsource the rest. Now, if you're just getting started and you don't know what your most marketable, most valuable skills are, then you're in a position almost like a sponge where anything you do is going to be helpful to some extent, because it's going to expand your breadth of knowledge. It's going to expand your skill development and awareness, really, of yourself and what your strengths and weaknesses are. And so if you're just starting out, if you don't have a strong marketable skill that you have been able to, generate income based on, for example, then doing some of this stuff yourself can be really valuable, because you, one, avoid sinking money into something that may or may not have the return that you're looking for on it. But two, again, you learn more about yourself. You might realize that you're a Photoshop whiz, that you really love doing graphic design. You might realize that you really love working on formatting, typesetting. You might be a really great editor or proofreader. You might be a really great audiobook narrator. I mean, there are a number of aspects to the book publishing arena that you could do yourself. And some people will do all of them themselves. Some people will do some of them, and some people will do none of them. And all of those people may end up publishing successfully. But when you're starting out and figuring all of those options out, I think it's a good idea to expand, figure out what that overlap is, and the things that really are a pain in the butt or stressful or not fun, that you could more effectively outsource and delegate, and then instead focus on what you're really good at, and then use that revenue that you generate on what you're really good at and what you really love to do, what inspires you, to subsidize the things that you don't love to do, and then in turn leverage the finished product toward the rest of your venture, the more effective that you're going to be. So I'll give hopefully a little bit more concrete of an example. Gary Vaynerchuk is a great entrepreneur, hustler, really energetic guy. I really like listening to him and watching him. And he's really good at building connections. He's really good at social media and the sort of social side of things. I imagine he's not a great coder. It would be much less valuable for him to spend time coding to redesign his website, and maybe have some marginal increase in site traffic on one of his ventures, than if he simply did more appearances, hustled more, sold more, went out, networked more, and then brought on a good developer to help him, tweak whatever it is that he's trying to do. Again, not everybody's going to be in Gary's position. Not everybody has a, highly successful venture already. But if you have some degree of success, and that, or you have an idea that, for example, publishing is going to be a part of growing that success, of building on top of whatever success you have already, and you're not a natural writer, you're not a natural editor, you're not a natural audiobook engineer, then you can outsource it and determine that for yourself. Yeah, this makes sense in this context, and I'd like to bring some people on to help me get over that hump, and then I can just hustle and build from the finished product.
And I really love that question of what's the best use of my time, because with that one question, you can look at all the things you're doing and see what can be delegated to other people. It's not necessary for you to master all the skills. Sometimes it's bad if you try to master a skill, because the time you have to spend trying to master a skill, like in the Gary Vaynerchuk example, coding, it's time that you're not able to use for growing your business or doing something else. So we should be very careful about where we're putting our time and look to see what we could delegate. And with books in particular, one of the most important things with having a successful book is to do the marketing. And from what I've heard, it's you write the book, but then it's 30% of your time is spent writing the book, 70% of your time is towards marketing, something like that, where it's you are spending a lot more time marketing than all the time you spent creating the actual product. So how can we optimize our books to drive more sales?
Yeah, that's another good question. There's a line in our self-publishing report. I'm going to paraphrase. It's something like, writing your book is the first 90%. The next 90% is everything that happens afterward, something to that effect, which, the math is kind of funny, but it gets to the spirit of how it feels and what it's like. But the short of it is, yes, marketing is really, really important. And you can have a book that is really tightly edited, that is cogent, coherent, great story, and technically sound. The layout looks good. The audio production, if you're doing that, sounds crisp, sounds clear. But if people don't connect with it, if you're not actually speaking with people, to your target audience, then you may be disappointed with the results. So I think one of the more important things that you have to do is be willing to market and to sell yourself and to believe in your product. Now, Zig Ziglar, one of the more famous salespeople of all time, said that you have to believe in your product. If you don't believe in your product, you're just a liar. And so practically, what does that mean? What does that look like? It means a number of things. One, getting serious about building your followership, figuring out what your best medium or media are going to be. Sometimes that's social media. Some people really love Facebook. Some people really love Twitter. Some people love YouTube. Whatever it is. Maybe people like writing. They have a blog. Whatever it is, do it and do it consistently. And figure out, again, this is where that self-honesty comes into play. Figure out what's realistic for you to be consistent about. Because if you are, excuse me, if you are not going to be consistent about it, it's going to be hard to have a consistent following. But do that and trust and know that it's going to take some time, that you're not going to necessarily going to be a, grand slam out on the first pitch kind of athlete or kind of author. Build that followership, engage with them consistently, deliver lots and lots of value so that by the time it comes around to actually having them patronize you and buy your book, buy your product, buy your service, you have already given them a lot of free value, but they trust you. They know what you're about. You have credibility. You have authority to them, and they can't wait to support you. Again, so those are some practical measures. Other technical measures, making sure that you understand the basics of, for example, keyword and category selection. That alone, if you get those, excuse me, if you get those right, that can really transform how a book stands. If you find out what your chosen audience is looking for example, on Amazon, which by the way is one of the largest search engines in the world, behind Google and YouTube, people use the Amazon search engine to find out information. And the nice thing about Amazon is typically if they're there, they have already decided they want to buy. It's a marketplace. It's not just an information repository. So figuring out what the people that you're trying to reach are looking for and speaking their language. You want to show them that you're part of their community. And that's, you can think, oh, well, that's a little underhanded, that's SEO, search engine optimization. Those are hacks, or those are a little underhanded or something. Sometimes people have negative impressions of it, but what I like to think is, no, it's just showing respect and consideration for your audience. It's showing them that you, whatever it is that you're doing that you think will provide a solution to their life, bring value to their life, make their life easier, richer, more satisfying in some way, that you, again, you speak that language, you speak that vernacular, and you want to use that to connect with them. And again, you can feel good about this if you believe in your product, if you believe in your book, if you believe in what you're doing. Then it's not underhanded to figure out where the fish are. There's one of the folks that we've worked with, Tom Corson Knowles. He has a line about authors who think about what their audience is looking for and try and provide that to them. He's like, yeah, creatively, sometimes people think of that as being a sellout. But, from my perspective, yes, they're a sellout, as in they sold out the first print run of their book, because they're actually interested in what their audience is looking for. And they're not trying to force feed them something that is not of interest. You actually meet people's needs. I think if you're in business, at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to solve problems and meet needs for people. And whatever you can do to facilitate that, make it easy for them, smooth out the process, eliminate any roadblocks or barriers, you want to do that. So again, that has to do with the SEO and keyword category selection, that kind of thing. And then finally, provide value. Once again, it goes back to, you have to believe in your work. You want to do a great job on your material. You want it to be as strong and compelling and persuasive and emotional and resonant, and whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, you want all of that out of your book. And it's your responsibility to your audience to do as best you can. Now, there's no such thing as a perfect book. No book is going to speak to every individual out there. There's nothing that is going to be flawless. However, you put the care and attention into it so that you can feel confident and comfortable when your ideal reader, your target audience finds it, that they will resonate and they know that you care about the details, that you have emphasized their needs and their wants for value, for brevity, for persuasiveness, for whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, and that really can help in the long term, connecting with the sort of audience that hopefully you're aiming for. So a bit of a meandering answer, but hopefully that provided some useful information.
There's definitely a lot of stages to optimizing our books for sales, and that free self-publishing report that Rob mentioned earlier on his site, archangelink.com, that's archangel-ink.com, will help you to basically figure out how you're going to self-publish your book and then promoting it to reach that audience. And one of the things that I see a lot of people in building their own brands and trying to make it as entrepreneurs, as authors, public speakers, is that they set big goals for themselves, which is something that we should definitely be doing, but I don't feel like everyone is able to reach those goals. So, Rob, what do you believe holds most people back from reaching their full potential?
Yeah, that's a tough one. People, I think, sometimes are afraid to give it an honest go. There's certainly a fear of failure there. There's a sense that they don't want to be seen as trying and not succeeding. So there's some degree of ego investment and lack of humility there. Humility in the best sense of not knowing what's going to be out there, but putting yourself forward anyway. I think another challenge for people who are struggling, sometimes is not knowing where to start. They don't have a game plan or an orienting worldview or framework to sort of hang their vision onto, and so they don't necessarily know what it is that they're trying to do. I think not. To some extent, I would say there's almost a. It's easier to not succeed because to some extent success comes with a lot of responsibility. So there's some fear as well there. It's almost like you're afraid of succeeding because then what? So how do you deal with that? How do you get over that? I think again that reflection, that honesty, that contemplation. Well, what is it that I want? What am I trying to do? How can I get aligned with that? Ideally, you're going to look for something that's good for you. It's good for yourself today, as well as in the medium and long-term future. It's good for your family and friends, for the people around you. It's good for the wider world. And having that sense of clarity, really thinking through that and letting go of things that maybe are not toward that highest goal or highest good, can make it easier to persevere and find something that actually is going to consume you and going to inspire you and motivate you and engage you fully and meaningfully. So I guess the take home would be, be really honest with yourself, take time if you need to, and then think about what it is that you're really trying to accomplish. And once you've determined sincerely that it's something that would bring meaning and value to your life, I think that will help them to overcome some of those obstacles and actually push through and see what happens, to give it an honest go and see how the world responds to whatever it is that you're trying to produce.
Rob, thank you for sharing with us those great insights on what holds people back from their full potential. And part of reaching your full potential is going through some of the challenge that you'll have to face along the journey. And with that in mind, I'm wondering if you could share with us one big challenge that you faced in your journey and a powerful lesson you learned during that challenge.
Yeah. I would say one of the things that I've experienced is I have, over the last several years, Archangel Ink has been around, I guess from its early form to now, about 4.5 years, maybe 5 years. And there have been periods when I've been able to fully sustain myself with the revenue from Archangel Ink, and other times where I have taken outside work to, reinvest everything the company is making and help grow it and make it more viable and more successful. And so, similar to what I was talking about earlier, there's a degree of ego investment, and almost like, boy, am I a failure if I have to go and get some outside work to build this business, to really get it off the ground. And a lot of people who are starting out, who are building their enterprises, they'll end up giving up because they, it's not making a steady and reliable six-figure salary, even middle class salary right from the get-go. This isn't going to work, and I think that's a bad way to think about it. One of the best pieces of advice I've seen is don't quit your day job. When you're starting something out, invest in it, put your time and energy and effort into it, put your love and passion into it, but don't be afraid to take on outside work. Don't think of yourself as a failed businessman, a failed entrepreneur, if that's the case. And again, it may even be the case that you step out, you take that leap of faith, and things work out for a while, and then you have to step back and do something else, consolidate and rebuild. And that's okay. That's part of the process. If you're willing to keep with it, there's this expression, there's this idea of the 10-year overnight success. You put in time and energy and love into your business, into whatever it is that you're passionate about, into your project, and it maybe bears some fruits, and then all of a sudden you're an overnight success, but there's been 10 years of incubation, and that's really common. Maybe sometimes it's 5 years, maybe it's 20 years, but figure out what it is that you're passionate about, and that's going to sustain you. The passion part, the interest, the independent motivation, is not so much that itself will make you an expert. I mean, it will help to some extent if you have a natural proclivity toward a particular avenue, but it's going to give you the energy to keep going, and that persistence, more than any natural aptitude, is what will help you succeed most of the time for most people. Persistence and sticking with your material or your project will help you do things that other people are unwilling to do because they don't have that energy, that passion, that motivation to keep them going, a year, 2 year, 3 years, 10 years later. And stick with it. Figure out what it is that you want to do, and hang in there. You may not see the financial rewards right away, but hopefully whatever you're doing provides some other value to you, some fulfillment, some sense of accomplishment, some outlet for your creativity, for productivity, etc. And then see where that goes. Now I will counter that too with another thing, and that is, don't become so ego invested in something that you're unwilling to walk away. Make sure that the passion stays there. Make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. And sometimes you're not. Sometimes you try something and you might do it for 3 months, 6 months, a year, a couple of years, and realize, what, my heart's not there anymore. Maybe it was never there. Who knows? But it's okay to move on. It's okay to do something different and to close one chapter in your life and create room for the next chapter to flourish.
And when we do go on our journeys, those challenges along the way, all the things that we learn, we do, as Rob points out, look like an overnight success. Like, if this is the first time you've seen Rob in like any episode or content, you may think he's an overnight success. If this is the first episode of mine you've seen, then maybe you think I'm an overnight success if you've never heard of me before. But the point is, everyone's had to face all those types of challenges. And the success, it comes to those who are going to be persistent and are going to be massive action takers. But there are no overnight successes, and you can be a success if you're willing to put in the time and effort to achieve the success.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, Mark. I think that's That's right on.
And you've published a lot of books. You've helped a lot of authors publish their books. And for someone who specializes in helping authors and getting their books out there, what are 3 books that you would recommend for growing our businesses?
Yeah, good question. So one book is Scott Adams, How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. The subtitle is kind of the story of my life. And in it, he talks about some of the same concepts here about developing systems rather than goals, which is to say good habits rather than specific outcomes that you're looking for. And those systems are things that, regardless of how it turns out, will add to your overall life satisfaction, will add to your overall skill development and personal growth, professional growth. For example, one idea he has is for every new skill that you develop and master, you double your odds of success. And even if you start out really low, you have a 1% chance of success, but you grow a new skill, it's 2%, 4%, 8%. All of a sudden, you keep doing this and kind of pursuing those arenas, success becomes maybe almost inevitable. So that's a good book on, I would say, mindset and habit development. From the practical side, one of the books that we published, and disclaimer, I don't get any cut. I don't see any sales. Most of the projects we do, the authors retain their rights and royalties. But something that we put out and helped publish was called Internet Business Insights. If you are interested in learning from people who have some degree of success and who have different ventures of their own, Internet Business Insights by Chris Naish and Buck Flogging is really good. And 100 different interviews with various entrepreneurs in various different arenas, and it can help you start thinking laterally. You might think, oh well, there's only one way to make money online. Maybe there's only being an author, or there's only being an affiliate marketer, or there's only being a coach, or something like that. But actually, there are many ways to make money and be successful, and this will help give you some ideas on how to do that and some insight from people who have done so effectively. The third book that I think I would recommend is a little bit different than those two, but it's Nonviolent Communication, and it's written by Marshall Rosenberg. It's more of a psychology book, and it's sort of a practice. And it's funny because I wouldn't say. I'm an advocate in some ways of assertiveness and confidence and forwardness. So nonviolence often has, nonviolent communication may have this implication of, being soft-spoken or being a doormat, but that's not really what it's about. It's more about figuring out what's going on for you, and then communicating that, forthrightly and confidently in a way that increases the likelihood that the other person will hear you, rather than focusing on bad, let's say, bad habits of communication and things that may impede the other party from hearing you and understanding you. Then it instead focuses on figuring out what actually is going on for you, and communicating that, and then taking action, hopefully to find some sort of good resolution that works for you, works for the other party, and helps to connect you and connect them with this, natural social instinct that I think people have. They like to contribute. They like to feel good. They like to do things for others. So I found it really, really effective, especially in business communication, because just practically speaking, it helps me to separate I would say not insinuate motives on other people, not presume to know what was going on for them, and instead focus on what actually is objectively happening, rather than what I imagine to be happening, and causing defensiveness and fighting over things that aren't really the issue. So nonviolent communication, Internet Business Insights, and How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big would be my recommendations.
Rob, thank you for those 3 great book recommendations and for sharing all of your great insights. The links and the show notes will be at markberty.com/E107. Earlier, you asked the question that we should all be asking ourselves: what is the best use of my time? but I'm wondering if there is another question that you believe we should be asking ourselves.
Yeah, as business people, one of the best pieces of advice that I've come across is charge more. Now, again, you really have to get the first part of that question right, which is how can I bring amazing value to people? But once you have something, a product or service, something that you really believe in, don't be afraid to ask for fair compensation. It takes all of us as entrepreneurs time, energy, effort, and love and passion to build these skill sets and to become really good and really effective at what we're great at. And once we have that, it's important for us to be compensated, if for no other reason than it allows us to continue doing this great work that we do, to continue investing time and energy and being fantastic and amazing at what we do, and continuing on personal and professional development and skill development and business growth and reaching more people and all of that. So I would say, am I undercharging would be a question to consider, especially if you have done all that work and you still feel like you're struggling, you still feel like you are stressed out, and maybe even you feel resentful over the clients that you have or the people that you're working with because you feel like they're not giving you enough somehow. You have to value yourself and find people who resonate with you and will value you accordingly. And when you do that, you can really give wholeheartedly and with good energy and good vibe and all of that, so that the experience is really positive and worthwhile. And again, so you're able to keep the lights on and keep doing what you're doing, because hopefully it's great and amazing and brings value to people's lives. So receiving value in kind for that is an important part of that equation.
More and more I hear about the importance of premium prices, and I've heard this for several interviews in a row now. So if you feel like you're charging on the low end, look for ways to increase the value of your products and services so you're able to charge higher premiums and you're able to attract more clients who are going to pay you more for your products and services. That is a last great takeaway to get from this episode on the Breakthrough Success Podcast. If you want to learn more about Rob and get that free self-publishing report we mentioned earlier, head over to archangelink.com. And at the end of that self-publishing report, you can even get a free 30-minute coaching call. So that's like a steal within a steal. Head over to archangelink.com in order to get that self-publishing report and the free 30-minute coaching call. Rob, I can't thank you enough for being a guest on the Breakthrough Success Podcast. It was a pleasure to pick through your brain today and talk about self-publishing your books.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. And congrats to you. More than 100 episodes of a podcast is amazing. It's something you should, and I'm sure you are, but I'll say it again, you should be really, really proud of. It's a great, great accomplishment. You're doing great work and connecting with other people, especially, finding the audience that resonates with you. So thank you for the invitation, and really excited to help people out there. And you're continuing to do great work. So please keep it up.
How does over 100 retweets per day sound to you? My free ebook, 27 Ways to Get More Retweets on Twitter, has you covered. I use the methods within this ebook to get over 10,000 retweets every single quarter. To learn more and get access to this free resource, visit markberty.com.